Last week's video we posted on the upcoming Helldivers 2 Warhammer 40k Warbond collaboration seems to have ruffled a few feathers out there. We saw this post hit the unfiltered Reddit just titled Brother, and you know the red bar never lies, but we won't hold it against the OP that they didn't watch a single second of the video. We also saw some homegrown rage hit the comment sections like this one, bro, can you stop making your thumbnails so lame and make something original? So yeah, with thumbnails in mind and with the cries of being original still ringing fresh in our ears, I wanted to give you a sneak peek behind the scenes and show you some of the original thumb concepts we had before posting our Warbond video. Call these ideas that ended up getting scrapped. Here's the first one that got cut that just says dead on arrival, and yeah, it's definitely a strong use of hyperbole, especially since the Warbond isn't out yet, but it's strong and it brings it nonetheless. This second one just went full-scale rage bait, Concord 2.0. Yeah, we danced around the fact that the Warbond is not a full-scale game that failed and was killed in 2 weeks and cost, what, $500 to $600 million to make. Yeah, you know, the Warbond is just a Warbond, so we ended up cutting that one. But this last one here, check this one out. This one almost made it to full-scale production. It says, it made Games Workshop puke. Which, I've got to be honest, this one right here was edgy, and again, it almost made it, but you know, in the end, there were a few concerns over making a statement like that because we don't know for certain if Games Workshop actually did puke. And yes, in case you can't tell, I'm trolling you just a little bit. The F-tier question thumb was possibly a little edgy, and for those of you who know my channel, edgy is not something that I shy away from because, interestingly, in that Reddit comment section, someone did point out the mantra for the creation of that F-tier thumb when they linked over to Betteridge's law of headlines, and especially this holds true for YouTube headlines that states, any headline that ends in a question mark can be answered by the word no, which is what that thumbnail was all about. We broke down the different weapons and the gear in that Warhammer 40k Warbond, and I said that I liked what I was seeing from the bolt pistol, I liked the melt-a-gun and the mine, but I was honest, I had some questions about the lasgun and the ergo armor passive, mainly because of the footage that was used to showcase the weapons and the point that I don't like ergo armors because of why they exist, and if you know, you know. Now, what was interesting to see develop from the video and the poll that I posted and all the comments it received was that overall, yes, there were some strong concerns and a hefty mix of skepticism, which is well earned, but also on the other side, a lot of positives and hype were being thrown around as well. Call it yet another example of a Helldivers YouTube comment section. You've got the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's check it all out and get the latest from Arrowhead because we've got a new piece of news coming from them as well. I'm going to be moseying around my channel's comment section and picking a few comments here and there to highlight because when it really comes down to it, the reactions to the Warhammer 40k official trailer really fall into one of four camps. The first of which we see here from Major Glazer, and it goes something like this: let the disappointment begin. And you know, you see a lot of variations of this comment, but the sentiment is the same. Prepare yourselves, and not in the good kind of way. Now remember, back to just a few moments ago when I mentioned community skepticism and how it was rightfully earned. Well, here's why. Legendary Warbonds and how the previous two have landed with the player base. There's plenty of Warbond ranking videos circulating around out there, but Dr. 𝗶𝗆𝗆𝗆 is known for these things, and he can really break down ranking videos, especially Warbond ranking videos. And when you take a look at his most recent ranking the best and worst Warbonds in Helldivers 2 video, 2 of the 4 Warbonds listed in his lowest poop tier are the Halo ODST and Killzone Warbonds. And I'll of course include all the links to his video so you can check it out for yourselves. Now, not everyone is going to agree on every single Warbond and where he has placed it, but let's be honest here, ODST and Killzone belong down there for good reason. The weapons across the board are outclassed by what you can purchase in the Superstore or through standard Warbonds, with the greatest example of that being the Halo M90A shotgun, which arrived as light armor pen and had very little ammo to boot. Then shortly after the ODST Warbond dropped, we got the Double Freedom in the Superstore, which statistically blew the M98 out of the water. No questions, no debates. The Double Freedom is twice the gun the M98 wishes it could be. Of course, there was also that whole drawn-out suppressors are not working, and then the studio claiming they are working, and we had to fight with Arrowhead and show them examples. Anyway, that happened, and then they ended up fixing suppressors on the eve of the Redacted Regiment Warbond releasing, and, you know, you get the idea here. Legendary Warbonds are thematically on point, though. I mean, you can't argue with how detailed and great-looking the ODST armors are, or even the Killzone armors with Acclimated as the passive. I mean, they really look good, even though they don't have the best or worst passives. But when we talk about the weapons, they are side grades at best, or lesser, and therefore much worse versions of what we already own. Yeah, I know that's a lot of build up to the point about the Warhammer Warbond and the "let the disappointment begin" comment, because the point I'm getting to is with these legendary Warbonds, Arrowhead has earned that skepticism. In that same vein as Major Glazer's comment, you see others like "who's ready for a light pen bolt pistol" and plenty of others just like that. I mean, I did want to say we don't know until we know, and that's only going to happen once the Warhammer 40K Warbond drops. But I do see and read all your feedback, both pro and con, and based on what you've seen from the past two legendary Warbonds, skepticism is certainly a valid point of view, and it's earned. We are essentially paying 50% more for one of these legendary Warbonds for the name and drip factor alone, because the player power fantasy is nowhere to be found, while the weapons come as they come, with no ability to make them better through customization. Probably the biggest and loudest section of comments the community's been posting have to do with the armor designs themselves, and within that argument, how undetailed and plasticky they look are the 2 points I see over and over again. Now, I'm not a Warhammer expert, but I know a lot of my viewers are, and your comments are really laying into the issue of the Warhammer armor designs. This comparison has been making all the rounds on Reddit and, of course, the other social forums, showing the armors side by side while also showing the incomplete look of the Helldivers variants. And also, yeah, I guess they do look kind of plasticky. And we've already seen this comment pop up quite a bit about how these Helldivers armors need some Nuln oil. Look it up and you'll get the joke. That texture and that lack of details and overall shininess of the armors has indeed drawn a lot of community criticism. And we did see 𝗵𝐻𝐻, one of Arrowhead's community managers, acknowledge that point this morning, especially when it came down to the heavy armor, saying, quote, "I passed on the plastic-looking complaint in my report this morning." Now, I honestly don't know if the team at Arrowhead will take that community feedback to heart and make those necessary adjustments, or, you know, with it, what, now being less than 10 days until the Warhammer Warbond launch, and probably also needing Games Workshop's approval for any cosmetic changes, who knows if any of those armor design issues can be addressed in time. But I wanted to point it out. It is a comment I've been seeing a lot. I've also seen comments about the lack of automatic weapons in this Warbond, how some viewers would have preferred a different version of 𝗪𝐿, and there was also more than a few comments about the color of the lasgun laser itself. And of course, we know what Games Workshop has done there with retconning that color. Again, I'm not that involved in the 40K universe, but I can certainly respect the knowledge and passion of those that are. It's hard to represent the third camp because they're the ones that kind of hang back and maybe cast an up or down vote, but they aren't much for commenting or vocalizing how they feel about this Warhammer Warbond. They fall into the cautiously optimistic camp, or even the, hey, I like what I'm seeing, but I don't want all the smoke associated with leaving my feedback kind of players. And again, with these kind of players, it's really hard to give an accurate representation of how many there are and how they truly feel, because they just don't participate much with online discourse. Here's a comment that kind of expresses how this crowd feels from, hopefully I'm not going to butcher this name, Kai9611, when they said, "Well, here's to hoping the trailer is actually legit and we get 𝗪𝐿𝑡as that do melting and not deflecting." So again, it's that cautiously optimistic group that's here to hope throughout this process. But the fourth and final camp that I'm seeing represented in the comments is quite the opposite, and I wanted to point this out. This group just wasn't impressed. Jester Actual commented, and the crowd goes mild. Here's another from 𝗻𝗁𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 saying, the only thing I felt watching the trailer was it's underwhelming. Now, a point I wanted to make is that with both the ODST and Killzone trailers, despite us learning that both of those armors and the weapon offerings were eventually underwhelming, the trailers themselves were legit. They were spot on. They were very well done. But with this Warbond trailer, a lot of players watched it and felt pretty meh about what was showcased. And who knows how good or bad the gear actually will turn out to be. Again, we won't know until it goes live, but the framing and combat that was shown in the trailer didn't do enough to get a majority of the player base interested in the gear and confident that this legendary Warbond is going to be different than the past two. I guess you could also tack on, let's call it an honorable mention from those that saw the trailer and are sold no matter what is delivered. It's Kasrkin armor. It looks like Kasrkin armor. I'm happy. You know, that kind of comment. Basically, anything Warbond is fine by them, and, you know, hey, we good with that. That camp of support could also fall into the say nothing but upvote crowd, preferring to make their approvals known without posting a comment. I mean, there's also quite a few specific issue type of comments I saw as well that I can't honestly place in an up or down vote because there's just not a lot to go on. I'm not going to butcher this person's name, but they say if it's not anti-armor, then it's not a proper 𝗲𝗀𝗃. Really focusing in on the Warhammer power fantasy and how that will be translated into a Helldivers 2 variation. Again, we don't know if they voted up or down for what they saw. They just pointed out the 𝗲𝗀𝗃. And of course, there is the fifth camp, which doesn't get its own breakdown here in my video, but you already know what those comments look like. Something about cry divers, yada yada, something else about glazers, and then you've got those that didn't watch a second of the Warbond trailer, or, you know, something like my video breakdown, but they like to chime in with no knowledge of what's going on. On YouTube, we call those dedicated supporters, but with those kind of commenters, you know what you're getting from them. Hashtag troller's gonna troll. But here's where I turn to you, my viewers, for your feedback. Are you most concerned about Arrowhead's track record with legendary Warbonds? Maybe the armor designs are the biggest turnoff for you. I mean, was it all perfect? Or are you finding yourself in the I'm not impressed camp? Drop a comment and let's talk. If you happen to like the video, please hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to stay in the know whenever I upload a video. I'd also like to send out a massive thank you to our entire hardcore channel member base who show up day in and day out to support the channel. If you're interested in joining their ranks, hit the join button on the channel homepage to instantly get access to members-only perks. Until the next one, this is 𝗲𝗲𝗹𝗶𝘀𝗂𝗏 signing off.